Let's be blunt for a second. Most builds in the Division 2 ask you to juggle something. Stack management, timing buffs, ramping damage, or constantly reapplying effects just to keep the engine running. Miss a few shots, lose line of sight for a moment, the fight resets and suddenly your damage falls off a cliff. This build doesn't play that game. Instead, you get almost infinite special ammo, a 50% damage amplification, bleed applied on every hit, and the best part, no stacks to build at all. The moment the fight starts, the build is already running at full power. We're using the Ongoing Directive gear set, together with the exotic Bluescreen LMG, turning every kill into a chain reaction that feeds more special ammo, spreads status effects, and keeps the damage rolling through entire enemy waves. Once it starts flowing, enemies bleed constantly. Your magazine keeps refilling with special ammo, and the damage amplification never stops. It's one of those builds that feels less like maintaining buffs and more like pulling a trigger and letting the chaos spread. So in this video, we'll break down how the Ongoing Directive setup works, why the Bluescreen turns it into a status spreading machine, and exactly how to put the build together so you can walk into fights already running at full power. As for the main ingredients of this build, we'll be going for the brand set Ongoing Directive. But why would you want this set? For the 2-piece bonus, you get 15% status effects. For the 3-piece bonus, you'll get 30% reload speed. And this is what it's all about, the 4-piece bonus. Rules of engagement, which makes it so that shooting a status affected enemy will apply a mark. Killing that marked enemy grants a full clip of hollow point ammo for your active weapon, and half a clip of the agent's active weapon to the rest of the party. The mark lasts for 10 seconds. Hollow point ammo amplifies weapon damage by 20% and applies bleed on hit. And with the chest piece, this is amplified even further. Luckily, they buffed this in a recent patch from the old 35% into an amazing 50% extra weapon damage. As mentioned, we'll be using the chest piece, which comes with the talent Parabellum Rounds. This increases hollow point ammo for weapon damage amplification to 50%. Unfortunately, this bonus does not apply to your party members. Now, we won't be using the backpack, but in case you're wondering, this is what it would do. Backpack talent is called Trauma Specialist. It increases the duration of your bleed status effects by 50% and all bleed damage done by 100%. In this build, the Ongoing Directive set has perfect synergy between gear and weapons. That's why the weapon we'll be using is the Bluescreen. This offers an amazing crowd control talent and has 200 rounds magazine, which will be refilled with the special ammo provided by the Ongoing Directive set after every kill. The talent is called Disruptor Rounds and makes it so that shooting an enemy marks that enemy and adds a stack to the agent up to a count of 50. Shooting a marked enemy refreshes the mark and adds stacks to the agent. When you deploy a non-shield skill, you remove all stacks on the agent and all marked targets trigger an effect. For 1 to 10 stacks, you pulse marked targets for 5 seconds. For 11 to 25 stacks, you pulse and disrupt marked targets for 5 seconds. For 26 to 49 stacks, you pulse, disrupt, and disorientate marked targets for 5 seconds. Now, at 50 stacks, you pulse, disrupt, and disorientate marked targets and all hostiles within 10 meters of the marked targets for 5 seconds. This effect will trigger immediately if any marked target is killed. The result is a build that does 3 things at once: consistent 50% damage amplification, permanent bleed application, and constant crowd disruption from the Bluescreen. That's why the combination feels so smooth compared to many other builds. Instead of building power over time, it creates a self-feeding combat loop, where status effects, ammo, and damage keep each other up and running. To amplify this never-ending loop even further, we add some attributes and a secondary layer of upgrades. For the attributes, we went with 2 blue cores and 4 red cores, giving us around 1.1 million armor and around 130k weapon damage on the Bluescreen. Adding the minor attributes divided between crit chance and crit damage, where my personal mark is 50% crit chance and every other stat or mod being put into crit damage. The way we put this build together, it really has some optimization to be done, making it so you can get another 26% weapon damage on the Bluescreen by upgrading the proficiency levels and even optimizing the minor attributes for more crit chance and damage. For the extra gear pieces, we went with the exotic gloves, the Overdogs. These add 30% extra weapon damage thanks to the exotic talent called Weakest Link, which amplifies weapon damage by 30% to the lowest ranking enemy within the tier hierarchy. This happens way more often than you think, especially when prioritizing the weaker enemies based on health bar color: red, purple, and yellow in that order. If you don't have these yet, the blueprint can be farmed by completing hyena retaliations. Or being a bit unlucky for now, you can switch them, for the time being, using the contractor's gloves or the eagle grasp. And for our final gear piece, the Petrov backpack, for an additional 10% LMG damage, and has the talent Wicked, which increases total weapon damage by 18% every time you apply a status effect, which is applied by every hollow point round you fire. As for the specialization, we'll be using the Gunner specialization, which provides the Banshee pulse. This skill is super easy to hit multiple enemies, has a short cooldown, and it stuns every enemy you hit. Thanks to this skill, we can start our combat loop, activating the Ongoing Directive perks. But Gunner also adds 15% LMG damage. Don't forget to respec into this and missing out on the damage. Another benefit is the 10% armor on kill, adding survivability, which is always nice to have. As said before, the primary weapon we are using is the Bluescreen. But another option would be the new LMG, the Big Alejandro. This however needs some build-up damage because of its exotic talent. The secondary weapons, probably not used a lot, but I have an assault rifle or an SMG with the talent Sadist, for 30% weapon damage on bleeding targets. For the sidearm, I have a personal favorite, the Quick Step. This comes with the talent Sport Mode, which gives us a 20% movement speed bonus. As for the skills, the Banshee Pulse and the Reviver Hive. Use the Banshee Pulse to start the damage loop and add some crowd control. As for the Reviver Hive, this is used as a safety net when overcommitting. Now, let's show the gameplay loop, which is really simple, but so effective. Use the Banshee Pulse on the first enemy. This applies the Ongoing Directive mark and stuns them. Kill the enemy and get the 200 hollow point rounds per kill, also applying more bleed status effects. From now on, this is a never-ending cycle for 50% extra weapon damage. And you don't even need to use the Banshee Pulse anymore. Upgraded by the Bluescreen talent for extra crowd control. Worst case, this is also a backup whenever Banshee is on cooldown and you ran out of 200 hollow point rounds. The exception to all of this is a boss fight, where ideally you'd kill one enemy every clip to keep the damage numbers on the boss. To make things easy, here's a build overview, starting from the top. Gunner specialization for Banshee Pulse, 10% armor on kills, and 15% LMG damage. The Bluescreen exotic LMG with 200 round magazine and crowd control. The Ongoing Directive set with the mask, chest, holsters, and knee pads. We use the exotic gloves, the Overdogs, for 30% more weapon damage. The backpack, the Petrov with the talent Wicked, for 18% more weapon damage. As always, this is only one variation to run. Love to hear how you made your build personal up in the comments. Let me know when you have any questions come up, because I'm happy to help you build. Else, I'll see you in the next one.